If the federal government has charged you with a crime, today is the day to start thinking about your future, because that headline that they're going to publish is going to have really long lasting implications and many collateral consequences. But you could take steps today to start building a pathway to restore your reputation. And as you start restoring your reputation, you will also start restoring your confidence. And that's what's super important for anybody who's going through the system, because when you get trapped or you get targeted for a criminal prosecution, it can feel as if you're a marionette puppet, with other people pulling the strings and lifting your arms one day until you're going to move one way, and you don't know anything. And so during that phase or struggle or challenge, your life is being ripped apart. You don't have to take my word for it. You could just sit here and look at a press release. Here's the United States Attorney's Office and I just picked D.C., the District of Columbia, and you could just look at their news and see their press releases right there, and you could see what they're publishing here. Women indicted for robbing a parking enforcement officer. I have no idea what went on in that case, but I also know that this person, something prompted her to take that decision. What is it? What happened? How about this district man sentenced to 11.5 years for a scheme to steal residential real estate using fraudulent deeds? Okay, I don't make assessments on what somebody's done in the past, but rather what is somebody doing in the future. And so we built a body of work and tool and resources that anybody can use so that you're not memorialized for the rest of your life by what you've done at the worst time in your life, or what you've been alleged of doing, or what a jury, or what you've pleaded guilty doing. My name is Michael Santos, and I made some really bad decisions as a young man. When I was 20 years old, I saw the movie Scarface, and instead of just seeing it as an entertainment film, I started making a series of really bad decisions, getting deeply involved in cocaine trafficking. And with all the wisdom of a 20-year-old, I believed that as long as I don't get caught with cocaine, I'm really not even breaking the law. So I started hiring people to do the work for me, and it was a really bad decision. It exposed me to a more severe sanction, and I got charged with what's called operating a continuing criminal enterprise, which exposed me to a life in prison. My judge ultimately sentenced me to 45 years in federal prison. But I refused to be defined by that whole story of what decisions I made at the worst decisions of my life. Instead, I started to build a pathway. Like if I type in here in Google my name, and I'm not in an incognito window, but you could see Michael Santos, type it in there. I control everything that's on this page, and it's all good, right? Of course, it talks about me being in prison, and now I'm 61 years old, but I went in when I was 23. It shows my Wikipedia page and the steps that I've taken to reconcile with society. It shows many of the books that I wrote, my personal story, how I build a pathway to success, even though while I was going through multiple decades in prison, and how I built this whole nonprofit space that's like a ministry for me of helping more people get the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. In order for me to succeed, though, in changing the law, I need to get scale. Tens of thousands of people who are demonstrating why we should see them not for what they did that led them to prison, but rather what have they done in response? What steps have they taken to reconcile with society? In order to do that, each person should be writing a biography, which they could do right on prisminvestors.org. If you just go to the talent profile page, you're going to see after you've opened an account, which is free, right? You just need a user ID and password so that your family or loved ones can manage your account if you're serving time in prison. If you don't have family in account, our nonprofit will cover the cost of that too. But we'd like it for you to build your support network so they can manage your profile. But tell us who you are, right? Who are you? right? I can tell you, I just told you who I am. My name is Michael Santos. I'm 61 years old. I made bad decisions when I was 20. I went to prison. And while I was in prison, I was really inspired by leaders who helped me change the way that I think. Those leaders included Socrates, who really taught me the art of Socratic questioning and figuring out to not focus on the challenges that I have, but rather on the people I wanted to connect with in the future. What could I do to earn their trust and respect? And what could I do to prove myself that I was something more than than the bad decisions I made during the recklessness of youth? That led to my 3-part plan, which was to get an education, to contribute to society in meaningful, measurable ways, and to build a strong support network. That is who I want the world to see me as. And I memorialized it all the way through the journey. This isn't about me, it's about you. You've got to write your own biography. So tell us who you are. Where are you at this stage in your life? What does success look like for you? And what success looks like for you today, it might be very different than what it's going to look like in the months, years, and decades ahead. When I was in prison, I started my first year in solitary confinement. And I had never been incarcerated before, and I knew I was facing multiple decades in prison. But from the very beginning, I used to visualize, how did I want to come home? How am I going to build a pathway so I'm not leading this life of mediocrity or continuing intergenerational cycles of failure, but rather, how can I prepare myself for the best possible outcome? And it was really that mindset and strategy that made all the difference in my life. It led me to work to get an education in prison, a master's degree in prison, a bachelor's degree in reverse order, become a published author, build a strong support system with university professors and then CEOs and business leaders, and then eventually even find the love of my life and get married while I was in prison. How did I build relationships with universities like Stanford and Hofstra and Harvard and Yale and Princeton and so many other schools that I worked with while I was incarcerated? You could read about all of that in my book, Earning Freedom. But again, this is not about me. Success for me in the early stages of my journey, as I said, was about getting through prison with my dignity intact and making sure that I had opportunities to prosper when I got out. But then, what is your plan to prepare for success when you get out? I remember getting out on August the 13th, 2012, and I was transitioning from prison to a halfway house. It was the first day that I was with my wife outside the purview of guards and cameras and everything else. We'd already been married for 10 years. We got married in a prison visiting room. And I remember crossing the bridge, and I told her within 5 years I'd have my first $1 million. That was not because I wanted to live as a multimillionaire, although I did. It was also about I needed capital and resources to accomplish the goals that I wanted, which is to change America's prison system, to build pathways for people to earn freedom. What about you, though? What is your plan to prepare for success? What steps are you taking today? That's what I really think you should cover in your biography. Demonstrate that you are the CEO of your life. You know how to build a plan. You know how to prioritize your actions. Do today what you need to do to open more opportunities tomorrow. You know that you've got to build a body of tools, tactics, and resources that you could use to accelerate your plan. Make sure that you are creating an accountability metric, something to demonstrate you're on path, and adjust as is necessary. But most importantly, execute your plan every day. Don't be one of these crybabies who are looking for a 9th place trophy because of how hard they worked. Focus on the result that you're after, and then demonstrate how are you advancing the ball. Remember, I make 3 promises. 1, I'm never going to lie to you. 2, I'm never going to ask you to do anything I didn't do. And 3, I'm never going to charge you a penny for any of the resources we give away on prisonprofessors.org. Everything is free because this is part of my ministry to change America's prison system. I can't succeed in my effort unless you are doing your part by being the CEO of your life, which means you have to document who you are, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and put that in a public place. And if you do that, I'm going to be able to profile you and say why you shouldn't be in prison. Now, I know it. You know it. Your mom knows it. Your dad knows it. But none of us have any relevance compared to the stakeholders that have the influence over your liberty. So start planting seeds today for the success that you want to become. You can do so by visiting prisonprofessors.org, opening your own profile, and get started by writing your biography. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors, and I believe in you. So be cool.